in some of these rural counties, you will run out of buyers. Like buyers will, there's only so many people that want to go to some areas. So that's what's like, I don't know if you want to be selling 40 parcels or whatever it is. It might get a little nerve wracking with that. What advice would you have someone like, you've been in this industry a long time. You're doing it differently right now than when you first started. When you started, you had a kid, you were obviously working a job. Like how was the balance?
Yeah, I would come in fully committed. Like after I'd put my daughter to bed, I'd start working. Yeah, if having the set times and also getting in whenever you can.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Apke, joined by my brother, land investor, droners.io, not founder, owner, Mike Apke. Mike, happy to have you here talking about land today.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so how long have you been doing land?
I want to say I started in March 2022.
And you've had an interesting journey for sure. Like there's been ups and downs, as you know. Like land is there's times when mail's not working well. Let's actually get started on there, Michael. You started in March 2022. You did things very similar to how we do things as far as like how we're acquiring direct mail, everything like that. How was like that first year, I guess? Let's talk about 2023 a little bit if you remember.
2022?
2022, yeah.
Yeah, the first year, it was tough at first. The first county I sent out, I got like, it was Indiana County, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I sent out like 3,000 mailers, went all the way down to 1 acre. Didn't know what I was doing. I'm sorry, that was the second county I sent out. And I got like 65 calls back, like crazy. And I just got 3 deals in that county, small deals. But that kind of set me up to get rolling. And then from there, it was, it was tough the first year. I think a lot of it is that the learning curve. So I didn't really know what I was doing. It took a lot more time to analyze the land. Pricing took a lot more time. I didn't understand things as well. But by the end of 2022, I hadn't made a lot of money, but I had equity in properties. I'd bought a decent amount. I don't remember exactly how much. Mm-hmm. It's been too long. But I remember I hadn't made a lot of money, but I had a lot of equity. So I was like feeling good and good to keep pushing forward.
So talk about going into 2023 and what that kind of year. I'm going to skip through a lot of the. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the old, but I just want to give everyone a background on where you come from as far as that.
And I'll say too, in 2022, I was probably down like 15, 20,000 at one point. With equity in properties, though. Mm-hmm. So I was negative 15, 20,000 just because I kept pushing out mail. But I had equity in properties. I know it was going to turn around. 2023 was a good. That was profitable year, very profitable. I started hitting some big properties. I remember one. I think you guys funded. I believe you funded this. It was 65 acres in Pennsylvania. What was it? Buy for 65, sell for 165. I think, and we bought that actually maybe at the end of 2022 and sold it April 2023. So that got 2023 moving well, starting well. And then I had another big property. It was a buy 135, sell 270, 65 acres in North Carolina, a couple other big ones, and a bunch of mid-sized deals. So it's 2023, things were rolling.
Yeah, you sprinkle in those big deals with the small to medium deals, and that's what like really. When you start getting those $60,000, $70,000 checks that you're making on a single deal, like it's a big difference. And then like those $15,000 ones don't seem like they're just like dragging you along. 'Cause that's sometimes what it feels like. Like you're making money on the smaller ones for sure. It's making more money than your marketing and everything like that. But it's kind of like, okay, I need something to like really hit. And I think that's what you saw into 2022, which is 8 months in when you got that first big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2024. Big year as far as a lot of stuff happening. I know you've had some breaks in mail, stuff like that. We bought droners.io, which we won't get into as far as details on that. You quit your job. But let's talk about 2024. Just kind of I don't even remember, honestly. Where were you at the beginning of the year with the land? Just kind of transitioning over from 2023, same stuff, sending mail. You haven't done any texting, correct?
No, I have not. I have not done any texting. Sold a couple good-sized deals in 2024. That I had bought in 2023. So 2024 started out well. And then once I bought droners, I put land on hold. Mm-hmm. I still did my disposition work, but in terms of acquisition, basically cut it because I was running droners, getting that up and running, and I still had a 9 to 5. And then since I've quit my 9 to 5, I believe at the end of July, quit my 9 to 5, July 2024, quit my 9 to 5, and I'm jumping back into mail now.
Yeah.
Or jumping back into land now, and really getting up and running. And psychologically, it's kind of hard because I like took off and now I got to like ramp back up. But getting back into it with some new strategy.
Yeah, and the nice thing about it, or not, maybe not the nice thing, whatever. The thing about it is, one thing, we've been coaching Mike one-on-one since he started, essentially, monthly calls, whatever they are, bi-weekly calls. And during the time, like when Mike came to us, he's like, I need to, essentially what Mike did, he came to us a few months ago, and he's like, I need to be more efficient with my time with the land, essentially. Like, he didn't want to just do the bulk mail, and he wanted bigger deals. Like, that was the biggest thing we talked about. We went to some more expensive areas at first, and then we added some features on the land portal. We're like, okay, we can change things up completely. Like, let's go after subdivides, stuff like that. And we probably started that, I don't know if we started 3 months ago, whatever, when we first started sending mail out and talking about that. But you're kind of like a guinea pig in this. Like, I want to see if we can scale coaching with helping people do big deals for sure. Like, once they're 6, 12, 18 months in, like, let's try to do big deals, subdivide deals, more specified deals. And I don't know if guinea pig's the right thing, but we were very aggressive with the pricing. Talk about that kind of mindset shift from let's just send 5,000, 10,000 mailers out a month to let's send, I don't know what it is, 1,000 a month, but very, very targeted.
Yeah, it's definitely different because, it's all about efficiency and it's all about hitting those big deals. Everything takes more time when you're targeting the bigger deals, but it's much more about efficiency. Whereas before, it was, I had the mindset like, got to get the mail out. And I never did 10,000 because I always had a full-time job. I was doing about 6,000, 6,000 or so. And it was like, okay, got to get the pricing done this weekend so I can get these 3,000 mailers out. It was all about hitting the mail numbers, which I don't think is bad, but it is a complete shift now to efficiency, spending more time on pricing, focusing on going on big subdivides. And then even when you get the big subdivides, they are a lot more time consuming than a buy 30, sell 70.
I think it's good timing for this interview because you just bought your first big, like a pretty solid, I don't know, big, I don't know what I mean by that, but you bought a pretty solid size subdivide. Talk about that deal a little bit that you just literally bought yesterday, right?
Yeah, we closed on, they said the wire didn't go through. Might be closing today, but yeah, either yesterday or today. So that's 144 acres and bought it for about 300,000, a little bit over. And we're subdividing it into 13 parcels. And I have a survey out there today. He started on Monday. He'll have the perimeter survey done next week, and then we'll do the split after that, which won't take that long, and we'll start selling them.
People are going to be really interested in this because this is really interesting. And how much do you think 144 acres is worth as is?
About what we bought it for.
So we're buying for market value, essentially. We're split $300,000, 144 acres. We're splitting into 13 parcels. I'm saying we. I didn't fund this deal. But how much road frontage did it have?
6,000 feet.
6,000 feet of road frontage. And that's the key. Like, that is the key to everything. And that's the thing. It wasn't perfect land. Like, it wasn't completely flat by any means. Like, there's some areas like you cannot just have this be the only road frontage because this is too sloped. So you have to be strategic as far as making sure the parcels are nice buildable parcels each. But yeah, let's just kind of break down this process. So you got this phone call. When did you get this phone call about this 144 acres?
Probably about 5 weeks ago.
So 5 weeks ago, you're buying it just today. So, and did you offer 300,000? Was it a blind offer?
Offered 285.
Okay.
Offered 285. He said, I think he wanted 330 or something. Left it there. It's like, the best I can do is 285, and then hung up. Called him back the next day and said, hey, how about would you go up to would you do 300? And he said 305. So he said, okay, 305. So that was, I want to say that was about 5 weeks ago. Negotiation wasn't that. I mean, yeah, it pushed it up to market value though. Negotiation. That's why I usually like calling back the next day, leave it a little bit just so I don't seem desperate when I'm buying things. And then from there started looking for funding. Once I got funding secured, which also on these deals it's harder. Getting funding is definitely a challenging thing. It's something.
But before that, you tried to assess it to make sure, correct?
Oh,
when
yeah,
did you assess
sorry.
the parcel for like what you think you can get?
When I first talked to him.
Okay, so you first talked to him. You probably reach out to us and like, I have this parcel, and I would definitely gonna get into the funding.
Yeah.
But you're buying something for 305. You're gonna have survey expenses, stuff like that. How are you doing this as far as trying to determine what market value? We're buying it for market value, but what is the market value when it's 13 parcels, or whatever you split into? Like, what did that process look like?
I started looking at it myself, drawing some maps up, looking at the market value for the different acreages that we'd be looking, what's 5 acres, what's 10 acres, what's 15 acres worth. I did it first myself, and then I sent it to you guys. I sent it to you guys initially, and then you guys reviewed it in one of your calls, and basically determined it would be about, I think about 575, all said and done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I started analyzing myself, and then went to you guys and asked you guys what your opinion was, and got a few other opinions.
So do you think 575 is like worst case scenario for this, or you think that's a solid? Would you be happy with 575?
Yeah, I think 550 to 575.
Yeah. And it's not bad. You're going to be all in for what, 315?
Yes.
About 315. Okay, so let's get into the deal funding part. So so it's not doubling your money. It's buy for 315, sell for 575, 550, whatever and there's going to be closing costs. Every parcel, all 13 parcels are going to have closing costs. Mm-hmm. First off, when you were there any keys when you were trying to maximize that market value that you did? Some people, I don't know. Some people were there any keys when you're trying to maximize your market value? Each market's different. Some markets are going to be like, all right, 5 acres is selling really fast. It's selling really expensive. 20 acres is selling for not that much. I need to try to get as many smaller parcels. Mm-hmm. What did that look like?
Yeah, it is trying to get as many smaller parcels between 5 and 10, or even 5 and 15 acres. Because once you get up 20 plus, in this county, the price per acre really seems to drop, mm-hmm. which isn't always the case. Like, we were just looking at a county in Georgia where the price per acre over 20 acres is massive. But in this particular county, when you start getting the higher acreages, there's like a pretty steep decline in price per acre. So we're trying to keep them as compact as possible. We do have to have probably 2 parcels about 20 acres, over 20 acres, a little over 20 acres. But trying to get more, as many 5 to 15 acre parcels as possible.
Yeah. I think that's key. You got to know the market that you're getting. You got to be strategic with this. You don't want to have too high of expectations, I think. And this was a slower market too. Let's back up a little bit to kind of market selection. Mm-hmm. You go into markets understanding the restrictions on this, and let's talk about the restrictions. Like, what did this county say you can and can't do?
Yes. Since I've been targeting subdivides, one of the most challenging things I've had is finding good counties. Finding counties where the restrictions are low. So that's taken up a lot of time doing research, calling counties, see what you can do, see what you can't do. This particular county is very nice. It's, if you have, every parcel needs to be at least 5 acres with 50 feet of road frontage. And if you follow those rules, you can split as many times as possible. So it's one of the easiest counties.
Yeah. That's not
most lenient counties.
And you knew that when you went into it.
Yes. I mean, yeah. I've actually done, in this county, I've done the quote unquote traditional mailing without not targeting subdivides, and I've had deals there. So I actually
did a deal this size, right? A big one?
No.
Oh, you
small
did?
one. I did like a 5 acre.
Okay.
But I already knew this county's restrictions because I'd done deals there and I've already talked to zoning.
Interesting. Do you think, so how did I know we did it together. How did we come up with that $285,000 offer price? When we're doing it, we have road frontage as a column. So 144 acres with 6,000 feet of road frontage is going to be priced different than 144 acres with 2,000 feet of road frontage, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the pricing is basically we're changing all the acreage. We have acreage ranges pricings and then road frontage ranges. So we might have 10 to 15 acres with 1,000 to 1,500 feet of road frontage, 10 to 15 acres with 1,500 to 2,000 feet of road frontage. And so the spreadsheet's a lot bigger, and we're breaking down by both acreage and by road frontage. Mm-hmm. I think everything over 100 acres. So we were pricing everything, and then you were looking at it and you said, just do $2,000 for everything over 100 acres. $2,000 an acre. Just throw it out there. You'll be able to make something happen.
I wonder if that would be a good county for survey hacking. I know that's kind of going in something different, just with something that unrestrictive. I'd be interested where you can fund some of those deals yourself. Do you think that 285, talking to the guy, like he was trying to negotiate, you guys were both playing the game as far as like negotiating. Do you think that 285 offer was the reason he called?
Yes. It had to be close.
Yeah.
It had to be. If it wasn't close to what he wanted, yeah, he would not have called.
Like, this guy was sitting on 144 acres in a county that's pretty rural. Like 144 for $300,000 is pretty rural if that's market value. but he was sitting on this 6,000 feet of road frontage. He gets these offers for $100, $120, $130,000.
Yeah.
He's not calling them back. He doesn't care. Maybe he'll bullshit them and shoot them a $400,000 offer. But he knew you were close. So like, if you could come up with something in the middle, relatively close, I think that's why. I mean, I would imagine that's why that offer price worked out. And how many mailers did you send to this county? Do you know? I know you don't know exactly.
I want to say like 700.
Okay, and you had this deal, $300K, sell for $570, which is crazy. We priced that really well, Mike. Not to like toot my own horn, but we priced right at 50% percent of max value essentially. But you said earlier you had one other solid deal that you're not sure yet on.
Yeah, I've basically moved on from it, but I could still. I'm a little overpriced on it. So I think we also did how much was that? That was like 300. That was around 300 acres.
Yeah.
305 acres. And we offered 615.
And you think it's worth?
He accepted 615. And I called him back. It's like, man, I messed up the pricing. Can you do 525s or anyway? And he just held it 615. Now you looked at, you thought we maybe be 1.1 million. 1.1 million.
But it's a scarier county because it's a little slower too.
Yeah, it's not. It is.
I don't know if you want to be selling 50.
Slow, but it's
The thing is, like in some of these rural counties, you will run out of buyers. Like buyers will be. There's only so many people that want to go to some areas.
Yeah.
So that's what's like. I don't know if you want to be selling 40 parcels or whatever it is. You have 13 here and then another 25 with that deal. It might get a little nerve wracking with that. And that's interesting. So is that one of your concerns with this deal as far as, I know we reviewed it for funding and margins were a little tighter for how we do things, but what's your thoughts on sell-through? You have a year contract for deal funding. We don't have to get into too much of the details with that.
Yeah.
But is that something you're looking more into now as when you're picking counties, is the speed?
Yeah, for sure. This county, I don't want to say it's slow. I mean, I sold 5 acres in this county. It's one 5-acre parcel, went under contract within a week. It was nice land though. I'm not concerned. I think it's going to sell. It's not all going to sell in 2 months though. It's going to take time because we're breaking out a lot. We're going to have parcels that are competing with each other, and it is a rural area, so it's not really a concern. I think our expectations, we know, it's not something that's going to. We're going to start. I think things will start selling right away, but to sell everything, it's going to take some time.
Yeah, for sure. It's 13 parcels. It's a lot. So when you split these up, what are the acreage ranges? You said it needs to be at least 5 acres, correct? What are the acreage ranges? Not exactly what acres, but I'm sure you have some 5-acre properties. And then how big are the biggest ones?
The biggest is probably in 20 to 25.
Yeah, and the reason, like 13 parcels, 144 acres, we're averaging 10 acre per parcel. I'm sure you would have split it more if you could have, but like you do run out of road frontage at some point. I'm not saying this parcel is weird because there's some, not weird, but there's some slopes. So you need to keep in mind all these things when you're subdividing. Mike, so you obviously have done some one-on-one coaching with us, stuff like that. You've also done some coaching and helped some people as well. You have done a lot of land deals. Who do you think this is for? Because we talked about before this podcast, before we hit record, about like there's a lot of moving pieces with this. Do you think subdivides like this are a little more advanced?
I do. It's not something I would start with. Once you have a good understanding of the land, but I mean, it doesn't hurt to try. The thing is, it's so efficient. If you pull 600 pieces of data, sound out 550 mailers. It's not that expensive. It's very efficient. So you could do it. But I'd recommend having a little bit more experience. Maybe once you're a year in, if you want to try it 6 months, I don't want to stop people from trying it, but it's more. The pricing's harder. I told you the county, even once we were under contract, the zoning restrictions, I probably called them 10 to 15 times over a few week period.
Yeah.
Just to make sure, because they weren't certain. They told me those restrictions, but then they weren't certain about it, and I just had to stay on top of them because I mean they're government employees. The difference between like an entrepreneur that wants everything fast and a government employee that kind of is taking their time. So I had to stay on top of them, and they actually appreciate it. They said just keep calling me back until I do it for you. So eventually got them. So anyway, but the pricing's a little bit harder. The zoning stuff's harder. Funding's a little bit harder. It's more complicated on the disposition side. So everything's just more complex, and it's substantially more time consuming. I've never put this much time in a deal.
Really?
Like this is way, it's a lot more time consuming, which is fine. I mean, great money for the amount of time. I'm not complaining about that, but everything is a little bit more. Everything is a little bit harder.
And like this is a big one too. It's not like you're splitting 10 acres into 2 5-acre parcels. You're splitting 144 acres into 13 parcels. So looking at 2025, Mike, like, are you trying to do one of these deals every 2 months? What in your mind, like, looks like a good 2025 to you? Like, you're running droners, so you gotta balance your time and everything like that. So you have to be efficient with this stuff. But from a land perspective, like, what are you envisioning? What are your goals for 2025? As far as, you don't need to do a deal every month, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I've gone back and forth on this. The balancing the two businesses is hard, especially because they're not that related. So there's the context switching, and it's it's tough. So I've been going back and forth. I think reasonably doing this on the side, because really droners is the number one priority right now. But doing on the side, I want to make $500,000 next year net profit from land.
I mean, it's like you're not gonna have any expenses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no expenses. You sent 700 pieces of mail to get this deal, which is whatever, $400, $500. You have some data. Like, let's just say you spent $700 to get this deal. You're going to make $100,000 on worst case scenario. You make I think worst case scenario, you make $100,000. So you do, and this is like, I don't want to say this is the lowest end of this strategy, but it's definitely far from the highest end. What barriers do you think you have of like doing a $500,000 deal versus buying like that 600, buy for 600? I don't know if it'd sell for 1.1, but if it was in a better market, like it would look a lot more intriguing for sure to you, and sell through would be much better. But what's keeping you from being able to do a buy for 500, sell for $1 million? Is it just the leads, or what is it?
I need to get more mail out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to put more focus on this. And that's the whole balancing the two businesses at the same time. But it's just gonna be more consistent with mail. And part of it is it's psychologically getting back in the mindset of doing mail regular or doing land regularly, because I took off a few months, like I said, in that period. So it's getting back into it full force. But I think the barrier is just me not being consistent enough.
What about deal funding?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be tough. I think if the deal's good enough, I can get funding, though.
Yeah.
I think I figure it out. But the deal funding is also, I mean, especially you're buying something market value. Most of the deal funders aren't used to that, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you got to sell. You have to sell, and it's there. So you're selling something that's legitimate, but you have to sell. Like, we're buying this for market value, but look at what the average price per acre is when we subdivide this into 10 parcels.
Yeah. It's buying a house before a renovation, essentially. Like it's a lot of stuff. Like you have what do they call it? ARV, maybe, adjusted retail value, something like that, after improvements. I don't know what it's called in that industry. But that being said, like, you have an improvement. This is an improvement you're doing. Now you're selling 13 parcels, and each one has X value.
Yeah. I'll say one more thing. And the funder that I'm using, the funder I found, he's been doing land investing longer than I have.
So he believes
So he's
in it.
bringing his own expertise. Yeah, and he's helping me too. Like, he's bringing his own opinions, expertise. He's kind of giving me different advice on the split. So that's very nice especially this being my first big one, having another land expert working on it with me. That's been very helpful.
Yeah. What advice would you have someone, like, you've been in this industry a long time, you're doing it differently right now than when you first started, which a lot of people make adjustments and they grow, and now you're doing something very specialized. What would be your advice for someone looking to get into this business with a 9-to-5? You had a 9-to-5, you had a family when you got started, so you have a different situation than Landon, who is sitting in that seat, than Dylan that I just talked to. What would be your advice for someone coming in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would come in fully committed. Come in with I don't know what you guys say about how much money to bring in. I'd say bring in $5,000 to $10,000, and just fully commit to it. Even if you're fully committing into it part time, I'm committing 15 hours a week to this business. I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna show up. I mean, the calls you have are very helpful, especially the Wednesday, the deal review. You learn so much about analyzing land by being on those calls. So I would recommend fully committed. Don't get caught up in one mailer. Get out as many mailers as you can, and I think you'll like the results.
Yeah, and how was that, like, balancing work, family? You had when you started, you had a kid. You were obviously working a job. Like, how was the balance? Is it just kind of just having like a set time for? I know we're backing up to 2022 again. Just having a set time for everything.
Yeah.
This is when I'm doing land.
Well, it is that, and it's just getting it in whenever I can.
Yeah.
Like, after I'd put my daughter to bed, I'd start working.
100%.
work a night. So I did have set times for it, but then also, and my wife was good. I'd work a lot of Sundays, like all day, a lot of the days on Sundays, and my wife would, hang out with the kids or do whatever, take the kids somewhere. So giving me that freedom because she believed in it as well. But yeah, it's having the set times and also getting in whenever you can.
What would you be doing if it wasn't for the land portal? Like not like just like realistically, like if you didn't have that data, do you think you would still be doing land?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because like being able, that's why you got the deal. You know what I mean? Like you're not sending out, unless you have a VA hand picking, but they're not going to know exactly 6,000 feet of road frontage.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy that you can predict like pretty accurately what the end market value is just because you have the road. Like we are predicting how you can split 144 acres into 13-acre parcels, and you know this before you send your mail out. But yeah, I was just curious. Like, I don't know if you would be doing land, to be honest, from my perspective, because it is like it's a high volume thing when you're not being, which is fine for a lot of people and it works for a lot of people. But when you can be more targeted, it makes you more efficient.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Whether I would have started, if I stayed in land, I definitely would have started texting more. I would have changed the game, but I would have changed my strategy and adapted. But yeah, I don't know. I might not be doing land.
Yeah.
Because this is fun. I like this a lot, and it is very efficient. And
it's like a next step. Like you start doing land deals, buying for 15, selling for 30, buying for 20, selling for 40, 45. Like that's fun. That's amazing. You're making good money. But like, how do I advance this? How do I make more money on each deal? How do I become a bigger expert? Because you might go from these minor subdivides to major subdivides to entitlements. Like there's so many different steps taking the next level. And as you add these different skills, you split into 13 acres or 13 parcels is a skill in itself. Learn how to manage that deal. And then you just keep on leveling up your skills in the business.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know what you were going to say to answer that question. I don't know what it was, honestly. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mike, I appreciate you coming on, talking about land. I know you talked about droners a few days ago. That should have been up. If you guys haven't watched that, make sure you watch that. Anything else for the viewers?
No, I mean, I think for the new land investors, or people that are interested in land, I'd really recommend giving it a shot because it changed my life in multiple ways. Even, I've been doing it for multiple years now. But the reason I could quit, I bought this company, droners.io, which is on a previous podcast we talk about it. But the reason I could quit my job and go all in droners.io is because the money I made from land. So whether you want to be a full-time land investor or you want to build up capital to do other things, or you want to go into land investing and then go into different niches of land investing like I'm doing as well, just get started because there's so many different routes. And there's a lot of people that have started with land investing and gone into different niches and made so much money to be made.
It's crazy how many people, and Daniel was talking to someone the other day who's like an expert in entitlements in our community. There's so many different, like everyone starts at like the same spot and they just kind of spread out. They're doing their own niches. Some people are doing very, very expensive. There's just so many different things. I can't get into it all. But yeah, if you guys, Mike's on Discord. If you guys have any questions for him, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to answer. But appreciate you guys watching. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below, like this video, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Spotify or Apple, leave us a review, leave us a comment. I believe you can do that in there now as well. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.